Irene sat in the small cafe by the corner of the street, her fingers trembling as she stirred her coffee absent-mindedly. The mug felt heavy in her hands. But it wasn't the weight of the porcelain that bothered her, it was the weight of the decision she was about to make. She had never imagined that it would come to this. She had always been the type to hold on, to believe in second chances. But today, something had shifted inside her. She looked up from her coffee and saw Rex walking in. His tall figure casting a shadow across the room. He was the man she had once believed would be her forever. The thought of it made her heart twist painfully in her chest. But she had no choice. She had to do this. Rex spotted her immediately. His face lighting up in a smile. He walked toward her, pulling out the chair across from her and sitting down. His eyes sparkled with that familiar warmth, the kind of warmth that once made her feel safe. "Hey, Irene, how's your day been?" Rex asked, leaning back in his chair. Irene forced a smile, her stomach turning. She hadn't wanted to meet him like this, but she couldn't avoid it any longer. The moment had come. Her heart pounded in her ears, but she steadied herself, knowing that if she didn't do this now, she might never have the courage again. "I'm fine," she said quietly, her voice almost drowned out by the hum of the cafe. "Rex, we need to talk." His smile faltered for a moment, confusion flickering across his face. "What's going on? You look serious. Is everything all right?" She took a deep breath, the feeling thick in her lungs. This was it. There was no turning back now. I've been thinking a lot," Irene began, her voice trembling slightly, "and I don't think we should be together anymore." Rex blinked, clearly caught off guard. "What do you mean? Is this about the fight last week? I told you, I didn't mean." "No, it's not about that," Irene interrupted him, her tone firm despite the turmoil inside her. "Rex, I know something's been going on. I can feel it, and I can't ignore it anymore." His brow furrowed, and he leaned forward, his hands clasped together on the table. "What are you talking about? I don't understand." "We've been fine, haven't we?" Irene looked down at her hands, feeling the weight of his gaze pressing down on her. She had suspected for months, maybe longer, but the recent evidence was too much to ignore. She had seen the texts, the late-night phone calls, the way his attention had shifted away from her. Her intuition had been screaming at her, and now she knew. "I know about the woman you've been seeing," Irene said, her voice barely above a whisper. Rex's face drained of color. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, looking anywhere but at her. "I'm not blind, Rex," Irene continued, her voice growing steadier. "I know about the messages, the calls, the things you've been doing behind my back, and I can't pretend like I don't see it anymore. I don't deserve this. I deserve more than being lied to." For a moment, the silence between them was suffocating. Rex seemed to be searching for something to say, but all he could do was stare at her, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "I never meant for you to find out like this," he finally said, his voice low and filled with regret. "But it wasn't like you think. It wasn't what you think." Irene shook her head. "Don't say that. Don't make this sound like it's some kind of misunderstanding. I know what's been going on, Rex, and I can't keep lying to myself about it. I'm done." Rex's eyes darkened, his expression turning from one of confusion to frustration. "So, this is how it ends, just like that." Irene nodded, her heart breaking with every beat. She didn't want it to end this way. She had tried to convince herself that the relationship was salvageable, but every time she had tried to reach out, Rex had pulled further away. She had fought for them, but he hadn't even noticed. "I wish things had been different," she whispered, her eyes stinging with tears she refused to shed. "But I can't keep pretending." Rex stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor, his hands balled into fists at his sides, and for a moment, Irene thought he might shout, but instead, he turned and walked away, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Irene sat there for a long moment, the hum of the cafe now filling the space where his presence had once been. She had made her decision, but it felt as though something had just been ripped from her. She had ended things with Rex, ended the future she had once imagined with him, but now the silence was louder than ever. Outside, the world carried on. People moved about, their lives continuing as if nothing had changed. But Irene knew that her world had shifted. She couldn't go back to who she was before. The breakup had cracked something open inside her, and she wasn't sure what would come pouring out next. As she gathered her things, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a message from Wayne, Rex's friend. "Wayne, hey, are you okay? I know Rex has been a bit off lately. If you need someone to talk to, I'm here." Irene paused for a moment, staring at the screen. Wayne had always been kind to her, even if she had never seen him in a romantic light. But now, she wasn't sure what to make of this. She had broken up with Rex, and yet, she wasn't alone. Wayne had been there for her before, in small ways, but this felt different. With a deep breath, Irene typed back, her fingers hesitating for a moment before she hit send. "Irene, I'm okay. But thanks, Wayne. I might need to talk soon." She put her phone away, stood up, and walked out of the cafe, her heart heavy with the weight of the past, yet unsure of what the future might hold. The sun was setting, cast him a soft golden light across the city streets. Irene walked slowly, her footsteps echoing against the cobblestones as she made her way to the park. After the emotional storm of the breakup with Rex, she had been trying to find some clarity, some space to breathe. It had only been a few days, but already, the weight of her decision felt both overwhelming and liberating. Her mind kept drifting back to Win's message. She hadn't expected him to reach out, not like that. She had known Win for years, but their interactions had always been casual, friendly even. He was Rex's friend, and while they shared mutual respect, they hadn't ever been close. But after everything with Rex, she realized she had never really talked to Win about herself, not in any real, meaningful way. The park was quiet, save for the rustling of leaves and the occasional chirp of birds as the evening settled in. She sat on a bench by the fountain, trying to clear her head. But the memories of Rex, their relationship, and the unresolved feelings that remained, clung to her like a second skin. It wasn't long before she heard footsteps approaching. She turned slightly, and there he was, Win. His tall frame stood at the edge of the fountain, his hands in the pockets of his jacket. He looked the same as he always did, casual, laid back. But there was something in his eyes today that made him seem different. There was a certain weight to his gaze, as though he could see right through her carefully constructed walls. I wasn't sure if you'd actually come, Win said with a half smile, his voice warm and easygoing. Though Irene noticed the slight tension in his posture, she offered him a small smile, gesturing to the empty space next to her on the bench. I thought I could use some company. You're the one who reached out. He sat down beside her, but there was a noticeable distance between them, as if both were unsure of what to say next. For a moment, the two of them simply sat in silence, watching the water ripple in the fountain as the golden light of the setting sun illuminated the park. I wasn't sure if you'd want to talk to me after everything, Win said eventually, his voice quieter this time. I know things have been complicated. Irene looked over at him, her heart heavy with a mix of gratitude and guilt. She hadn't expected him to be this considerate, especially after the way things had ended with Rex. But Win had always been a good friend to both of them. He didn't deserve to be caught in the middle of this. I didn't expect this either, Irene admitted, her fingers nervously toying with the edge of her sleeve. But you're right, things have been complicated. Win shifted slightly, glancing at her. You don't have to explain anything. I just wanted to make sure you were alright, Rex. He's been pretty lost without you, you know. He hasn't really been himself lately. I don't think he saw this coming. Irene let out a breath, feeling her chest tighten. He wouldn't, would he? She muttered under her breath. She paused, looking away from him, her voice tinged with a bitter edge. I don't think Rex ever really saw me coming. It's like he never understood that I needed something more, something real. Win was silent for a moment, his eyes searching her face as if trying to understand her better. I think you need more than just him. Irene, you've always been someone who deserves more, someone who's worth more. His words hit her harder than she expected. She had spent so much time trying to make Rex understand her, trying to make the relationship work, but it had never been enough. And now, here was Win, someone who had known Rex for years, speaking as though he saw her in a way Rex never had. Irene turned to him, her eyes narrowing slightly. And what makes you think you know what I need? She asked, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her voice. Win shrugged, an easy smile returning to his lips, though there was a quiet sincerity in his eyes. I don't know, but I've seen you struggle. I've seen how hard you try, and maybe that's part of the problem. You don't need to fight so hard for someone who doesn't see you the way you deserve to be seen. Irene's breath hitched as she looked at him. His words struck a chord within her, opening up wounds she hadn't even realized were still fresh. She had spent so much of her life trying to prove herself, trying to make others see her worth, and yet, every time, she seemed to fall short. I'm not sure if I can just let go of all of that, she whispered, her voice timid with vulnerability. I love him, Win, I really did. But now, I don't even know who I am anymore. What if I'm just lost? Win turned his body slightly to face her, his head gently resting on the arm of the bench between them. You're not lost, Irene. You're just at a crossroads. It's okay to feel lost sometimes. It doesn't mean you're broken, and it doesn't mean you won't find your way again. For the first time in days, Irene felt a small glimmer of something hope. Maybe she had been so focused on the past, on Rex and their failed relationship, that she hadn't stopped to think about what she wanted for herself. What if Win was right? What if this was her chance to start over, to rebuild herself without the weight of someone else's expectations? I don't know if I can trust anyone right now, Irene said quietly, her voice almost a whisper. I don't even know if I can trust myself. Win's expression softened, his eyes full of understanding. You don't have to figure everything out today. Just take it one step at a time. I'm here, Irene. I'm not going anywhere. The sincerity in his voice made Irene's heart flutter unexpectedly. She had never thought of Win in a romantic way. He had always been Rex's friend, someone on the periphery of her life. But now, in this moment, there was something about the way he looked at her that made her question everything she thought she knew about relationships and what they could be. I appreciate it, she said. her voice barely above a whisper. She didn't know what would come next, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe just maybe she wasn't entirely alone in this. The evening light was fading now, the last remnants of sunlight slipping away, but neither of them moved. They sat there in the quiet, a soft understanding passing between them. Irene didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in days, she felt the stirrings of something new beginning to take root. The crisp autumn air wrapped around Irene as she walked through the quiet streets of the city. The day had started out like any other, but now, as the sun dipped behind the horizon, the weight of her thoughts pressed on her chest. She had tried to focus on her work, tried to keep her mind from drifting back to Wayne and the conversation they had shared a few days ago. But the more she thought about it, the more questions arose in her mind. The more she thought about Wayne, the more she felt the stirrings of something unfamiliar, a flutter in her chest that she couldn't quite place. She had never thought of him that way before. He was Rex's friend, always just a familiar face at parties or social gatherings. But now, it felt different. There was a new tension between them, something unspoken but undeniably present. She didn't know what to make of it. As she rounded the corner toward the small coffee shop she frequented, she spotted Wayne sitting at a table by the window. His usual relaxed demeanor was replaced with a look of deep concentration. His phone in hand as he typed something with quick fingers. His eyes flicked up when he noticed her, and his face softened into a smile. "Hey, Irene," he said, standing up as she approached. "You're early." Irene shrugged, the unease still lingering in her chest. "I needed to get out of the house for a bit. Thought I'd grab some coffee." "Good idea," Wayne said, pulling out the chair opposite him. "Mind if I join you?" Irene hesitated for a moment, then sat down. She hadn't come here to talk about what was going on between them, not yet, at least. But she had to admit, there was a part of her that wanted to be close to him, wanted to understand what was happening. "So, how have you been?" Wayne asked, his eyes scanning her face with genuine curiosity. "I've been okay," she said, taking a deep breath. "It's just, everything's still so confusing. I thought breaking up with Rex would make things clearer, but now I feel more lost than ever." Wayne's gaze softened, his concern palpable. "I can't even imagine how hard that must be. But you're doing the right thing, Irene. I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but you're stronger than you think." Irene felt a warmth spread through her at his words, but there was a part of her that resisted the comfort. She wasn't sure what kind of strength she had left. She had given so much of herself to Rex, to their relationship, and now all she had left was a hollow ache in her chest. "I just don't know what to do with myself," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I feel like I don't know who I am anymore. It's like I was living for someone else, and now that I'm not, I don't even know where to start." Wayne leaned forward slightly, his eyes never leaving hers. "I get it, Irene, I really do. But this is your time now. You don't have to find yourself in someone else. You just need to find yourself. Period. Take it slow. You don't need to have all the answers." Irene felt her heart thud against her ribs at his words. The sincerity in his voice, the way he seemed to truly understand her pain, it was overwhelming. She couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. This was Wayne, Rex's friend, someone she had known for so long. She couldn't let herself fall into something new so quickly, not when the scars of her past were still fresh. As she opened her mouth to respond, the door to the coffee shop opened, and in walked Rex. Irene froze. Rex spotted them immediately, his eyes locking onto hers with a mixture of surprise and something else, something she couldn't quite place. He hesitated for a moment before walking over to the table, his movements stiff. "Irene," Rex said, his voice guarded, though there was a hint of something softer beneath it. Wayne gave a casual nod. "Hey, Rex. Didn't expect to see you here." Irene's heart sank. She hadn't expected to run into Rex today. She had been trying to move forward, to get some space from him, but it seemed fate had other plans. "I didn't know you two were hanging out," Rex said, his eyes flicking between her and Wayne. There was an edge to his voice that wasn't there before, a subtle tension that only added to the heaviness in the air. Irene cleared her throat, trying to keep her voice steady. "I just needed a break from everything." Wayne was just offering some support. There was a brief pause as Rex's gaze lingered on her, searching her face. "I see," he said finally, his tone cool, but not without an underlying hurt. "Well, I won't keep you then. I just came to grab a coffee myself." Wayne looked between them, sensing the unease. "Yeah, we'll catch up later, Rex. Don't worry about us." Rex gave a tight smile, his eyes lingering on Irene one last time before he turned and walked to the counter, leaving them in an uncomfortable silence. Irene exhaled slowly, her heart racing. That was awkward. Wayne's expression softened, though his eyes remained sharp with concern. "Yeah, but it's good that you didn't back down. You've got every right to move on. Irene, you don't owe him anything." Irene nodded, but there was a lump in her throat she couldn't swallow. Seeing Rex like that, so distant and hurt, it made her question everything again. She had ended things with him because she had needed to, but the pain in his eyes, the way he had looked at her, made her wonder if she had made the right choice. "I don't know if I'm ready for this," she whispered, more to herself than to Wayne. "Maybe I'm not ready to move on. Maybe I just I just want things to go back to the way they were. Wayne reached across the table and placed a hand over hers. The warmth of his touch sent a shiver down her spine. I get that, he said softly, but you have to remember, things weren't perfect with him. You deserve better than that. Irene, you deserve someone who will see you for who you really are, not just the person you were for him. Irene looked down at their hands, the weight of his words settling over her like a heavy blanket. She wasn't sure if she was ready to start something new, especially with someone so close to Rex. But at the same time, she couldn't ignore the way her heart responded to Wayne, the way he made her feel seen in a way no one else had. But before she could respond, her phone buzzed in her pocket. She glanced down at the screen, her stomach flipping when she saw the name. It was Rex. Rex, I need to talk to you. Can we meet tomorrow? Irene's heart sank again. The last thing she wanted was to face Rex right now, but she couldn't ignore the message. She wasn't sure what it meant, but the fact that he wanted to talk felt like another unfinished chapter of their story. She looked up at Wayne, her mind spinning. I have to go, she said quietly, standing up and grabbing her bag. But I'll figure this out, I promise. Wayne watched her, his expression unreadable. Take care of yourself, Irene. Don't let anyone push you into something you're not ready for. Irene gave him a small smile, her thoughts a whirlwind of confusion and emotion. Thanks, Wayne, I really mean it. She left the coffee shop quickly, the weight of Rex's message hanging heavily over her. What did he want? And more importantly, what did she want? The days following her meeting with Rex were a blur. Irene couldn't shake the weight of their conversation, nor could she silence the echo of his apology. She had expected to feel a sense of relief, of closure, but instead, she felt more confused than ever. Rex's words kept replaying in her mind, the sincerity in his voice laced with regret. She wanted to believe him, to believe that things could have been different, but there was a part of her that knew better. She had made her decision. She couldn't go back. No matter how hard it was, Rex had never been the person she needed him to be, and it was time for her to stop pretending otherwise. And then there was Wayne. Her thoughts often wandered to him, to the way he had been there for her when she needed someone to talk to, when she needed a friend. But it was more than that now. She had tried to push it away, tried to deny the spark that had ignited between them, but she couldn't ignore it. Not anymore. The problem was, she wasn't sure what to do with it. Was it too soon? She had just ended things with Rex, and here was Wayne, stepping in with a quiet assurance, offering her something she hadn't known she needed. Irene sat at the small kitchen table in her apartment, sipping her coffee as she stared out the window at the busy city streets below. It was a beautiful morning, crisp and clear, and yet, there was an emptiness in her chest that she couldn't quite shake. Maybe it was just the aftermath of everything, the feeling of being torn between the past and the present. Her phone buzzed on the table, pulling her from her thoughts. She glanced at the screen, her breath catching when she saw the name. Wayne, hey, are you free for lunch? I thought we could grab something and talk. Irene felt a wave of warmth spread through her chest. He had been reaching out more often lately, checking in, asking how she was. She hadn't expected him to be so persistent, but in a way, it felt like exactly what she needed. She typed a quick response. Irene, I'm free. Where do you want to go? Wayne's reply came almost instantly. Wayne, how about that little sushi place on Main Street? I know you like it. Irene smiled as she read the message. She had always enjoyed that place, quiet, intimate, the perfect spot for a conversation. She quickly grabbed her coat and keys, heading out the door. Her thoughts, for the first time in days, weren't consumed by Rex or the past. For the first time in a while, they were focused on the possibility of something new. The sushi restaurant was just a few blocks away. When Irene arrived, she spotted Wayne sitting at a small table in the corner, a half-empty glass of water in front of him. He stood up when he saw her, a warm smile spreading across his face. You mean it, he said, his voice light and easy. I was starting to think you'd bail on me. Irene laughed, shaking her head. I wouldn't do that. Besides, it's been ages since we've had a meal together. Wayne pulled out the chair for her, his gesture as effortlessly kind as always. I'm glad. We've both been a little busy, haven't we? Yeah, a little, Irene replied, sitting down and glancing over the menu. It's been strange, you know. I thought things would get easier, but it just feels like there's always something unresolved. Wayne studied her for a moment, his gaze thoughtful. You're still processing everything, and that's okay. Irene, you don't have to have all the answers right now. You just have to take things one step at a time. Irene nodded, though a taint of guilt crept into her chest. She knew Wayne meant well, but the more he was there for her, the more she wondered if she was leading him on. He deserved someone who could give him a clear answer, someone who wasn't still tangled up in the past. She placed the menu down, her gaze meeting his. I don't want to hurt you, Wayne. I really don't. But I can't pretend that I'm not still dealing with everything. I can't just move on from Rex like it's nothing. Wayne's smile faded slightly, but he didn't look hurt. Instead, he looked understanding. I never asked you to move on, Irene. I'm not trying to replace anyone. I just want to be here for you, in whatever way you need. Irene swallowed hard, her throat tightening with emotion. He was so patient with her, so calm, and it made her feel even more conflicted. She wasn't sure if she was ready for this, but there was something in the way Wayne looked at her, something in his quiet presence, that made her feel safe in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. I don't know what I need right now, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But I know I'm not okay. I'm still broken. Wayne, I don't think I'll ever be whole again. Not after everything with Rex. Wayne reached across the table, his hand brushing hers in a gentle, reassuring touch. You will be, Irene. It might take time, but you're not broken. You're just healing, and you don't have to do it alone. I'm here, whether it's to listen, to help, or just to sit with you when you need it. Irene looked down at their hands, the weight of his words sinking in. She hadn't realized how much she needed someone to say that, to tell her it was okay to take her time, that she didn't have to rush into anything. Maybe she wasn't ready for a relationship, but she didn't have to be alone in her pain either. I don't want to push you away, she said softly, lifting her gaze to meet his. I need time to figure things out, to figure myself out. Wayne smiled, his expression warm and understanding. I'm not going anywhere, Irene. I'll wait. Just take the time you need. But don't forget I'm here for you, always. The words settled around Irene like a soft blanket, comforting her in a way she hadn't expected. She felt a quiet relief, the tightness in her chest loosening ever so slightly. She wasn't sure where this path would lead, or if it would lead anywhere at all, but for the first time in a long while, she felt like maybe, just maybe, there was hope for her to find peace again. Their food arrived shortly after, and they settled into easy conversation, the weight of the past still there, but not as oppressive as it had been. There was something new between them now, an unspoken understanding that they didn't need to rush. For the first time in days, Irene allowed herself to enjoy the moment, to focus on what was in front of her, rather than what was behind. Later that evening, as Irene walked back to her apartment, she felt lighter. She had no illusions that things would be easy, that her past with Rex wouldn't haunt her for a while longer. But the tension in her body, the constant feeling of being on edge, had eased. Maybe she wasn't healed, but she was moving forward, and that was something. As she stepped inside her apartment, she glanced at her phone, noticing a message from Wayne. Wayne, I had a good time today. I'll check in on you tomorrow, okay? Irene smiled softly as she typed her reply. Irene, I'd like that. Thanks for today. She set her phone down, the quiet hum of the city outside her window offering a strange sense of peace. For the first time in weeks, she felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for something new. The morning sun shone brightly through the blinds, casting long shadows across Irene's small apartment. She had barely slept the night before, her mind racing with everything that had happened in the past week. Her conversation with Wayne, the unexpected encounter with Rex, and the message from him that had kept her awake long into the night. It all felt like a whirlwind she couldn't escape from. She stood in front of the mirror, running a hand through her disheveled hair. Today, she had agreed to meet Rex. The weight of that decision felt heavier than she had expected. Was she making a mistake by meeting him? She wasn't sure, but something inside her told her that this conversation was necessary. She needed closure, or maybe, deep down, she just needed to hear him say something, anything that would help her understand why things had gone wrong. With a deep breath, Irene grabbed her coat and keys and left her apartment. The crisp morning air hit her as she stepped outside, a chill that seemed to match the unease settling in her chest. The cafe where they had agreed to meet was only a few blocks away. As Irene walked there, her thoughts wandered to the last time she had seen Rex, the hurt in his eyes, the way he had looked at her as if he didn't understand why she had left. It had torn at her heart in ways she hadn't expected. But still, she had made her choice. She had walked away for a reason. When she arrived at the cafe, she saw Rex sitting at a table near the window, his posture tense, his gaze fixed on the door. He looked up as she walked in, his face softening for a split second before his usual guarded expression returned. Irene, Rex said, standing as she approached. He sounded surprised, like he hadn't quite expected her to show up. But there was something else there, something deeper in his eyes that she couldn't quite place. Rex, Irene replied, her voice steady but her heart pounding in her chest. I didn't think you'd ask me to meet so soon. He gestured for her to sit, and she did, sliding into the chair across from him. The air between them felt thick with unspoken words. They had been together for years, but now it felt like they were strangers. I thought we needed to talk, Rex said quietly, after a bit of silence. About everything. Irene nodded, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her coffee cup. I agree, we do need to talk, but I don't even know where to start. Rex leaned forward slightly, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't understand. Irene, why did you leave? We were good together, weren't we? Irene's breath caught in her throat. She had known this was coming, but hearing him say it still made her feel like she was drowning in the past. She had tried to explain it to him so many times, but it always seemed to fall on deaf ears. He never seemed to get it. I thought we were good, Rex, she said, her voice shaking despite her best efforts to stay calm. But I was always second. I was always the person you came to when everything else fell apart. I was never the priority. You never saw me. Rex's face twisted slightly, as though the words hit him harder than he expected. I never meant to make you feel that way, he said, his voice thick with regret. I thought I was doing what was best for us, but I didn't realize that I was losing you in the process. Irene looked down at her hands, her fingers curling into fists on the table. I don't think you ever realized. You were so wrapped up in your own world, in your own career, that you didn't see how much I was giving, how much I was sacrificing, and it wasn't enough. I wasn't enough. The words tasted bitter on her tongue, but they were true. It hurt to say them, but it hurt even more to keep them buried inside her. The anger, the frustration, the feeling of being invisible, it had all been eating away at her for so long. I'm sorry, Rex said quietly, his eyes softening. I didn't know. I was so caught up in everything. I never realized how far apart we'd grown. Irene shook her head, swallowing back the tears that threatened to rise. It doesn't matter now. We're too far gone. I can't go back. Rex, I can't keep trying to make something work when I'm the only one fighting for it. Rex was silent for a moment, his eyes locked onto hers. There was a flicker of something in his gaze, something that made Irene's heart twist. But she pushed it away. She couldn't let herself get sucked back into the past. Not now. You're right, he said finally, his voice a low murmur. But I want you to know, Irene, that I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't want to lose you. And I'm sorry for everything. Irene swallowed hard, forcing herself to look away from him. It's too late for apologies. Rex, I'm not the same person I was when I was with you. I've changed. A silence stretched between them, heavier now than before. Irene could feel the weight of his gaze, but she refused to look back at him. She couldn't. Not when her heart felt like it was being torn into. Just then, the door to the cafe opened, and in walked Wayne. He spotted them immediately. His eyes scanned the room before settling on Irene. He looked briefly at Rex, then back at her, his expression unreadable. Is this a bad time? Wayne asked, his voice casual but with an undertone that suggested he had picked up on the tension in the air. Irene's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected Wayne to come in. She had told him she'd be meeting Rex, but she hadn't expected him to actually show up. No, Irene said, trying to mask her surprise. It's fine. Wayne walked over to their table, giving Rex a brief nod before sitting down next to Irene. I wasn't sure if you needed some backup, he said, his tone light but with a hint of something more protective. Rex looked at Wayne, then back at Irene. His gaze flickered with something. Was it jealousy? Irene couldn't tell. She didn't care. I didn't expect you to show up, Wayne, Rex said, his voice tight. But I guess that's how things are now. Wayne's eyes met Rex's with a calmness that belied the underlying tension. I'm just here for Irene, he said, his voice even. She doesn't have to go through this alone. Rex didn't respond. Instead, he stood up abruptly, pushing his chair back with a loud scrape. I think we're done here, he muttered, his eyes briefly meeting Irene's with a look she couldn't decipher. I just wanted you to know that I'm sorry for everything. Irene nodded, but she didn't speak. She couldn't. The words were stuck in her throat, too heavy to say. Rex left the cafe without another word, leaving her and Wayne in an awkward silence. Wayne turned to her, his face softening. Are you okay? Irene nodded slowly, her eyes following Rex's retreating figure. I think I needed that, more than I realized. Wayne smiled gently, his hand brushing against hers in a quiet gesture of support. I'm glad you're okay. But you don't have to do this alone anymore, Irene. Not if you don't want to. Irene looked at Wayne, her heart pounding in her chest. For the first time in a long while, she felt like maybe she wasn't as alone as she thought. The week passed in a strange lull. Irene buried herself in work, clinging to the routine like a lifeline. Each morning she woke up early, poured herself a bitter cup of coffee, and walked the familiar route to the office, hoping the rhythm of it all would dull the ache that lingered under her skin. But nothing really helped. She hadn't heard from Rex since their last encounter, and while she tried to tell herself that was a good thing, there was an emptiness that came with the silence, a silence that screamed. Wayne, on the other hand, remained a steady presence. He never pressured her, never pushed her to talk or feel a certain way. He would simply show up, dropping off her favorite coffee without asking, walking her home when it rained, or sending her a message late at night just to say goodnight. It was the kind of consistency she had never known with Rex, and yet, her heart still hesitated. One Thursday afternoon, the weather took a sharp turn. By 4 o'clock, the sky outside her office had darkened to a deep slate gray, and the thunder rolling in the distance sounded like an omen. Irene stood at the window of her shared workspace, arms crossed, watching raindrops slide down the glassy, messy trails. She wasn't expecting anyone, so when she heard her phone buzz with a message from Rex, her stomach dropped. Rex, I need to see you, please, just once more. She stared at the message, heart pounding. She should ignore it. She should block his number, delete the thread, erase every trace of him from her life. But her fingers hovered over the screen, and before she could stop herself, she typed back, Irene, what do you want? Rex. The reply was immediate. Rex to explain. In person. I'll come to your place tonight, 8 p.m. Irene didn't respond. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no either. She turned the phone over on her desk and closed her eyes, her breath shaky. It was raining hard by the time she got home. The city lights blurred through her rain-spattered window as she changed into something warmer, a loose gray sweater and leggings. Her apartment smelled faintly of chamomile and old books, comforting in its stillness. At exactly p.m., a knock came at the door. Irene stood frozen in the hallway, hand hovering near the doorknob. Part of her wanted to pretend she wasn't home, but something stronger pulled her forward, the need for answers, for closure, for something she could finally put to rest. She opened the door. Rex stood there, rain-soaked and breathless, his hair plastered to his forehead. His dark coat was dripping onto the hallway floor, and his eyes, those same ones that had once made her feel like the only girl in the world, were filled with something between guilt and desperation. "Irene," he said softly. "Hi." She didn't say anything. She just stepped aside and let him in. Inside, the apartment felt too small with him in it. Irene stood by the kitchen counter while Rex peeled off his wet coat, draping it over the back of a chair. He looked around like he was seeing the place for the first time, even though he had been here dozens of times before. "This is still your place, huh?" he said, offering a weak smile. "I didn't move out of the city or burn the apartment down, if that's what you mean," she replied flatly. Rex winced. "I deserve that." She crossed her arms. "Then say what you came here to say." He hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. "I miss you, Irene. I made the biggest mistake of my life walking away from you. And I know it's too late to ask for anything, but I had to see you. I had to tell you." "Why now?" she asked, her voice trembling despite her effort to sound cold. "Why after everything?" "Because I finally realized what I lost," Rex said, stepping closer. "I've been walking around like a ghost. Nothing feels right without you. I thought I needed space to figure things out, to focus on my career. But none of it matters if you're not there." Tears down the corners of her eyes, but she blinked them back. "You didn't just ask for space. You pushed me away. You ignored me. You made me feel like I wasn't enough. I was scared," he admitted. "I didn't know how to be the man you deserved, so I hurt you instead. That's on me." The storm outside cracked loud and sharp, the lights flickering once before returning to a dim glow. Irene turned away from him, gripping the edge of the counter like it might steady her. "You broke me, Rex," she said quietly. "And now you want to come back like nothing happened." "No," he said, stepping beside her. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I want to try again. I want to earn your trust. I can change. You always say that." She snapped, spinning to face him. "You always promise to change, but nothing ever does. You leave, and you come back, and every time, I let you in, hoping maybe this time it'll be different. And every time, it's not." Rex's jaw clenched. "It was never fake, Irene. What we had was real. Then why did you treat me like an afterthought?" she whispered. "You only remember me when it's convenient, when you're lonely, when things go wrong." They stood there in silence, the tension between them palpable, the sound of the rain loud against the windows. "I'm seeing someone," she said fatly. The words came out before she could stop them. Rex's face went still. "Wayne," he said, his voice barely above a growl. Irene nodded. "I should have known," Rex muttered, pacing toward the window. "He's been waiting for me to screw up. Watching and waiting. This isn't about him. It's about me." Irene sighed, her voice steady now. "And maybe I don't know what I want yet, but I know what I don't want. I don't want to go back to who I was when I was with you." Rex turned to face her, eyes welled. "You think he loves you more than I do. You think he knows you better. I think he sees me," she said. "He listens. He doesn't make me feel small, a bit past." The air between them thick with old wounds and unspoken truths. Rex stepped closer again, his voice pleading. "Give me one more chance, Irene. Just one. I'll prove it to you. I'll do whatever it takes." She looked at him, this man who had once been her everything, and felt something shift. Not longing, not hope, finality. "You already had your chance," she said, "and you lost it." Later, after Rex left without another word, Irene sat curled up on her couch, knees drawn to her chest. Her chest ached, but it wasn't the sharp pain of regret. It was something else, something softer. Relief. She had said what she needed to say. No more pretending, no more wondering. Rex had come back like a storm, but this time, she hadn't let herself be swept away. Her phone buzzed again. It was Wayne. "Wayne, hey, just checking in. You okay?" She stared at the message for a long moment, then typed back, "Irene, I will be. Can I call you?" The next morning dawned with an unfamiliar stillness. The storm had passed, leaving behind puddles reflecting a pale blue sky and city streets that seemed freshly washed. Irene stood at her window, holding a cup of warm coffee between her hands, watching the people below going about their lives as if nothing monumental had happened the night before. But something had shifted inside her. She had closed the door, finally, and now she stood at the edge of something new, something uncertain. Wayne hadn't responded after her late-night text. She hadn't expected him to. It was well past midnight when she messaged, but still, she kept checking her phone, half hoping, half dreading his name would appear on the screen. It did. At 9:06 am. "Wayne, I'm around today if you want to talk. Brunch, your favorite place." A tiny smile tugged at the corner of her lips. He always remembered the details, always offered without pushing. Irene, yes, 10:30. When? I'll be there. The cafe was a small corner spot tucked between a florist and a bookstore, quaint and sunny, with yellow booths and hand-painted mugs. Irene had always loved how it smelled like fresh bread and cinnamon, like something warm and safe. Wayne was already there when she arrived, sitting by the window with a cup of black coffee and a newspaper folded beside him. He looked up as she walked in, rising to his feet with a soft smile. "Hey," he said, his voice warm and steady. "Hey," she replied, sliding into the booth across from him. "You okay?" he asked, not pressing, just leaving the door open. She nodded, wrapping her hands around the warm ceramic mug that the waitress placed before her. "Yeah, I think I am." Wayne studied her for a moment. "You saw him, didn't you?" Irene didn't flinch. "Yes, last night. He showed up." Wayne took a slow sip of his coffee, saying nothing at first. Then, gently, "Do you want to talk about it?" She hesitated. "I told him it was over, for good, that I'm done." His eyes didn't leave hers. "Are you?" She paused, looking down into her latte like the phone might hold the answer. Then, slowly, she nodded. "I think I needed to say it out loud, to feel it. I don't know if that makes sense." "It does," Wayne said quietly. "Sometimes the words matter more than we realize." The silence between them was comforting, filled with the soft clinking of dishes and the hum of soft jazz playing through the speakers. Irene watched him across the table, the calmness in his posture, the patience in his eyes. He wasn't like Rex. He didn't demand, didn't dramatize, and yet, she still didn't know how to cross the space between them. "I'm scared," she admitted suddenly, "of hurting you, of messing things up. I don't even know who I am without all the damage." Wayne leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. "You don't have to figure it all out right now, or even with me. I'm not asking for forever, Irene. I just want the chance to stand beside you, however that looks." Her breath hitched a little. "You're too good to me." He shook his head. "No, I just see you." After brunch, they took a walk through the park. The sidewalks were still damp, and the trees shimmered with droplets like tiny stars. Children splashed in puddles. Couples walked hand in hand, and somewhere nearby, a street musician played a soft tune on a saxophone. Wayne kept his hands in his coat pockets, giving her space to walk beside him without pressure. Irene appreciated it more than she could say. "Can I ask you something?" she said after a while. "Anything? Why did you wait so long? You've known me for years. You must have seen what was happening with Rex. Why didn't you say anything?" He was quiet for a bit before answering. "Because I didn't want to be the guy who swoops in when you're broken. You deserve more than that. You deserve to make your choices without me in your ear, telling you who you should love." She glanced at him. "But you wanted to." "I still do," he said softly, as meeting hers. "But I want you to want me for you, not because you're trying to get over someone else." They paused near a bench, and she sat down, tucking her coat tighter around her. "I used to think love had to hurt," she said, "that if it wasn't consuming or painful, it wasn't real." Wayne sat beside her, and now, she looked up at the sky, soft clouds drifting slowly above them. "Now I'm starting to think love should feel like peace, like safety." He nodded. "It should." Their hands brushed on the bench. She didn't pull away. That night, Irene sat on her couch with a cup of tea and no music playing. The apartment felt different, lighter, as if she'd opened a window and let the past out. She scrolled through her photo gallery absent-mindedly. Pictures of work events, coffee runs, old friends. Then a photo of Rex laughing, his arms slung over her shoulders. Her smile in the photo was wide, but now it looked foreign. She selected it and hit delete. Then another, and another. Not out of bitterness, not out of rage, just clarity. It was time. Her phone lit up again. "Wayne, still thinking about our walk?" "I liked it. You looked free." Irene smiled and replied. "Irene, thank you for waiting, Wayne, always." The next week passed in a haze of quiet transitions. Irene threw herself into work. Her days filled with meetings, emails, and project reviews that left little room for overthinking. At night, she walked home through the city lights, letting the rhythmic noise of traffic and conversation ground her. Life was moving forward, but healing wasn't linear. Some mornings, she woke up with a tightness in her chest, memories curling at the edges like smoke. Rex's voice, his scent, the familiar weight of disappointment she used to carry like a second skin. Other mornings, she woke up lighter, with Wayne's text blinking on her screen and sunlight spilling across the sheets. She was learning, slowly, that both realities could exist at once. It was Thursday evening when her phone rang. Not a text, a call. "Wayne." She hesitated for a moment, her thumb hovering over the screen. Something about the unexpectedness of it made her heart thump harder. She answered. Hey. His voice was low, a little breathless. "Do you have plans tonight?" "Nothing major. Just leftover pad thai and a stack of unread emails." "Sounds thrilling." He chuckled. "How about I pick you up in 30 minutes? There's something I want to show you." Irene raised an eyebrow, already standing to glance at herself in the hallway mirror. "Is this a wear heels thing or a wear a hoodie thing?" "Definitely a hoodie. And maybe bring a blanket." "That mysterious. You'll see." 35 minutes later, she climbed into Wayne's car with a thermos of tea and her favorite fleece-lined jacket. He looked relaxed in jeans and a grey Henley. His hair slightly tousled like he'd been running his fingers through it all day. Where are we going? She asked, buckling her seatbelt. Somewhere you can breathe, he replied with a soft smile. They drove out of the city, the skyline disappearing behind them and the roads narrowing into winding hills. The sun had begun to dip below the horizon, casting gold and violet streaks across the sky. Trees blurred past the windows, and Irene let herself lean back, lulled by the gentle silence and the sound of wind humming softly to the radio. Finally, he turned down a dirt path and pulled into a clearing surrounded by tall pines. Ahead was a small hill, and at the top a wooden platform with streamlights dripped from tree to tree. You brought me to a Pinterest board, she said in disbelief as they stepped out into the crisp air. Wayne grinned. Guilty. I come here sometimes when I need to clear my head. I thought maybe you'd like it. Irene followed him up the short trail, the sky darkening above them. When they reached the platform, she gasped softly. The view was breathtaking, miles of trees bathed in twilight, stars beginning to blink through the deepening blue. The city's glow was barely visible on the horizon. This is, she began, but couldn't finish. Her throat was tight. Wayne unfolded a couple of thick blankets, spreading one over the bench and handing the other to her. They sat in silence for a moment, sipping from the thermos and watching as the sky turned indigo. I used to dream of running away, Irene said quietly. Back when things with Rex got bad, I thought if I could just disappear, I'd be okay. I'd be free. Wayne looked at her, not speaking yet. But I never ran. I stayed. I let myself break over and over, thinking that was love. She exhaled, shaking her head. I'm still so angry with myself sometimes. Irene, he said, his voice gentle but firm. What you went through, it wasn't your fault. Wanting to believe someone will change isn't weakness. It's hope. She turned to him. And what if I don't know how to be with someone healthy? What if I ruin everything again? You won't, he said simply. And if you stumble, I'll be there. Not to fix you, just to hold you while you find your footing. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The wind rustled the leaves, and all hooted in the distance. Then she whispered, why me? Wayne. He looked at her like she was the only star in the sky. Because I see the fire in you, even when you can't. Because you're honest, even when it hurts. And because somewhere under all that armor, I know you still believe in love. Her eyes dumb. That makes one of us. No, he said softly, brushing a strand of hair from her face. It makes two. They stayed until the stars were scattered thickly above them, and the chill crept deeper into their bones. But neither wanted to leave just yet. Did you ever love someone before? Irene asked suddenly, her voice almost lost in the wind. Wayne was quiet for a moment. Once, a long time ago, college. She was wild and brilliant and broken in ways I couldn't fix. What happened? She left. He said with a shrug. Said I was too safe, too boring. Irene smiled faintly. You're not boring, he grinned. Thank you. I've been working on that. They shared a laugh, and something eased between them. A shared want, quietly acknowledged. She didn't feel so alone. As they packed up, Irene lingered on the platform, looking out one last time. I want to stop looking back, she said. I want to live forward. Wayne came up beside her. Then let's take it one step at a time, together. She turned to him, something brave sparking in her chest. I'm scared, she said. So am I, he replied, then reached for her hand. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. That night, back in her apartment, Irene curled up on her bed and stared at the ceiling. The city hummed below, but it no longer felt suffocating. She picked up her phone. Irene, tonight was beautiful, thank you. Wayne replied almost instantly. Wayne, you were beautiful, thank you for letting me in. She stared at the words, her heart softening. Then, for the first time in a long time, she typed without overthinking. Irene, I think I'm starting to believe in love again. There was a pause. Then, Wayne, then let me show you what it can be. And this time, she didn't feel the need to run. Saturday afternoon arrived with a rare kind of calm. Irene stood in front of her closet, holding up two different blouses with a look of reluctant amusement. You're not seriously nervous, she muttered to herself, but she was. Wayne had invited her to a small get-together at his friend's apartment, a casual rooftop barbecue with some of his closest colleagues and friends. It was the first time she'd be seeing him in a social context, outside of their quiet little bubble of stolen evenings and thoughtful text messages. Something about it made the whole thing feel real. She eventually settled on a soft cream sweater tucked into high-waisted jeans, minimal makeup, and a small gold necklace Rex once told her looked too simple. She wore it now as a quiet rebellion. The Uber ride to the address Wayne said was silent except for the faint hum of jazz playing on the driver's radio. Her fingers tapped nervously against her knee. The last time she'd attended an event as someone's plus one, it had ended in public humiliation and 3 days of silent treatment. But this was different, wasn't it? Wayne met her at the entrance to a refurbished loft downtown, all exposed brick and wrought iron. He was in a dark blue shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbow, a bottle of wine in one hand. You came, he said. His smile a mixture of relief and admiration. You asked nicely, she replied. Lifting an eyebrow, he leaned in and kissed her cheek. You look beautiful. The warmth of his breath lingered on her skin as he gathered her inside. The rooftop was spacious and strung with fairy lights, with music playing softly in the background. A few people milled around near the grill, drinks in hand, laughter rising in occasional bursts. Wayne introduced her to everyone: his business partner Joel, his childhood friend Laura, a pair of newlyweds who seemed perpetually locked in laughter. They were warm and open, treating Irene like she'd always belonged there. At first, she stayed close to Wayne, but gradually she began to ease into conversation. Laura asked about her work, Joel joked about Wayne's terrible fantasy football record, and Irene found herself laughing more than she had in months. For the first time in a long time, she felt light. But peace has a way of shattering just when you begin to trust it. She was refilling her glass at the makeshift bar inside when her phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. You're really moving on that fast. Cute. Don't get too comfortable. The blood drained from her face. She stared at the message, the chill of memory gripping her chest. No name, but she didn't need one. It was Rex. She locked her phone quickly. Hard thudding. The room spun a little, and she gripped the edge of the counter. Wayne walked in, holding 2 paper plates. They're doing grilled pineapple now. Apparently it's a non-negotiable experience. He stopped short when he saw her face. Hey, he said softly, setting the plates down. What's wrong? Irene hesitated, swallowing hard. He texted me just now. Wayne's face hardened. Rex. She nodded. Show me. Reluctantly, she handed him her phone. He read the message silently, his jaw tightening. I can block the number, she offered quickly, trying to sound unaffected. It's probably nothing, just his ego. No, Wayne said firmly. It's not nothing. He doesn't get to play mind games with you anymore. She looked down. I don't want this to ruin the night. I don't want to give him that power. Wayne reached for her hands. Look at me. She did. I know what it feels like to have someone try to haunt you after they've already broken you. But you're not alone this time. You have every right to enjoy your life. And you don't owe him anything, not your attention, not your fear. She nodded, emotion writhing behind her eyes. Wayne gently pulled her into his arms, and she leaned into him, the tension starting to release. Back outside, the city twinkled beneath the night sky. Irene felt Wayne's presence beside her like a steady pulse, grounding and quiet. When Laura passed them plates of caramelized pineapple, Irene managed a smile of gratitude. As the group talked and laughed, she found herself watching them so casual, so unguarded. She'd spent so long building walls that this kind of ease felt foreign, but we made it feel possible. Later, when most guests had left and the rooftop was quieter, Wayne led her to the edge of the terrace. They sat on a wooden bench, the city stretched out below them. Do you think he'll stop? She asked, staring at the lights in the distance. I don't know, Wayne admitted, but I know you'll be okay no matter what he does. She turned to him, her eyes searching his. And what about you? What are you doing with someone like me? He frowned. What does that mean? I'm still figuring things out. I'm still carrying things. Maybe I'm not ready. Wayne reached out, brushing his thumb along her cheek. I'm not looking for perfect. I'm looking for honest. I'd rather walk beside someone who's healing than someone who's pretending they're fine. Tears welled in her eyes before she could stop them. That's what scares me most. You're kind and good, and I don't know how to believe that someone like you stays. I'm not going anywhere, he said quietly. Not unless you tell me to. She leaned her forehead against his shoulder, letting the warmth of his presence soak into her. For the first time, she didn't feel like she was chasing a mirage. She felt seen, held, real. That night, as Wayne drove her home, they barely spoke, content in the silence between them. He walked her to her door. Will you be okay? He asked. She nodded. I will. He hesitated, then reached into his pocket. Here, he said, pressing something into her hand. She opened her palm. A small, silver keychain shaped like a star. It's from a trip I took last year. I kept it because it reminded me that even small things can carry light. She looked up at him, her throat tightening. Thank you, she whispered. He kissed her then, slow and certain, like a promise. And when she closed the door behind her, Irene didn't feel like a woman on the edge of collapse anymore. She felt like someone learning how to stand. The weather turned cold the following week, as if the city itself had decided to withdraw into silence. A steady drizzle painted the sidewalks in glistening shades of gray. Irene stood by her office window, watching people pass by below with umbrellas like floating petals of black and navy. She hadn't heard from Rex again, not since the text. We had helped her block the number, and they hadn't spoken about it since. But the silence didn't always mean peace. Sometimes, it only meant a storm was brewing somewhere out of sight. Her phone buzzed on the desk. It was a calendar alert. Lunch with Melissa at 12:30 p.m. Irene sighed and grabbed her coat. Melissa chose a boutique cafe made on a place with too many mirrors and waiters who looked like aspiring actors. Irene arrived a few minutes early and was shown to a small table by the window. She spotted Melissa approaching through the rain. Designer trench coat cinched perfectly at the waist, umbrella in one hand and a look of restrained curiosity on her face. When she walked in, she gave Irene a quick once-over before smiling tightly. You look well, she said, sliding into the seat opposite. You too, Irene replied. though she wasn't entirely sure she meant it. Melissa was Rex's sister. The last time they'd seen each other had been at a family function, where Irene had left early with mascara running down her face and an apology she never received. "What's this about?" Irene asked as the waiter brought menus. Melissa folded her hands together. "I just thought we should talk. Things between you and Rex, and messily. I think some things were left unsaid." Irene looked at her, then out the window where the rain streaked the glass. "Things weren't left unsaid," she said softly. "They were said too loudly, and too late." Melissa tilted her head. "He's not doing well, you know." Irene raised an eyebrow. "That's unfortunate." Melissa gave a small laugh. "You called that, I remember." "No," Irene said. "Wife's daddy. I'm just no longer apologizing for standing up after being knocked down." Melissa looked as if she wanted to argue, but instead she softened. "I'm not here to defend him," she said finally. "He was an idiot, but you were part of our family for years. I miss you. My mom misses you." Irene blinked, startled. "Your mom knew how he treated me." "She did," Melissa admitted. "But you know how these things are in our world. Appearances, control, expectations. I'm not interested in that world anymore," Irene said. They sat in silence for a few moments as the waiter returned to pour water. Irene picked at the corner of the napkin on her lap. "Are you seeing someone?" Melissa asked suddenly. Irene met her gaze. "Yes, and he treats you better." "I don't compare people," she replied. "But he sees me. He listens. That's more than I ever had with Rex." Melissa leaned back. "Good. I'm glad. Even if it's a little weird." "Weird?" Melissa smiled faintly. "You were always supposed to be part of our family. It just takes time to rewire what you thought was permanent." Irene's chest ached with a strange, hollow nostalgia. "Sometimes," she sighed, "you don't realize how wrong something was until you finally experience what's right." Later that evening, Irene walked home instead of taking a car. The rain had slowed to a mist, and the city shimmered beneath it like a dream. Wayne had offered to come over, but she needed the solitude just this once to sort through the tangled threads in her head. She paused outside a small bookstore near her apartment. It was one of those places that felt like it belonged to another century of faded signs. Warm lights, the faint smell of ink and dust wafting through the crack of the door. Something pulled her inside. She wandered past the shelves slowly, fingers brushing over spans until one title stopped her. "The Art of Letting Go." She opened it at random. "Healing isn't forgetting, it's remembering without breaking." Her throat tightened. Behind her, a voice spoke. "I didn't expect to find you here." She turned slowly. Rex. He was standing a few feet away, hair wet from the rain, hands tucked into the pockets of his coat. His presence filled the quiet like a drop of ink in water, sudden, unwanted, inescapable. Irene froze. "How did you?" "I was nearby," he said, as if it explained anything. "I saw you walk in." She stepped back. "Instinctive." "Don't," she said. "You're not supposed to talk to me." "I know," he said, "but I needed to." Her eyes flared. "No, Rex, you wanted to. There's a difference." He looked thinner than before, more tired, but the exhaustion on his face didn't erase the history between them. It didn't rewrite the nights she'd cried in silence, or the way his voice could turn sharp without warning. "I made mistakes," he said quietly. "Too many." "That's generous," she muttered, trying to move past him. "I'm not here to win you back," he said quickly. "I just..." She turned sharply. "Then why are you here?" His voice cracked. "Because I don't sleep anymore. Because I see your face in every place I go. Because you're the only thing I got right. And I ruined it." She stared at him, words clawing at the back of her throat. "You didn't ruin it, Rex," she said at last. "You destroyed it, bit by bit, word by word." He swallowed. "I didn't mean to hurt you, but you did," she said, eyes gleaming. "And I let you. For so long, I let you. But I'm done carrying that blame." A long silence fell between them. "You're seeing someone," he said, more a statement than a question. "Yes." "Is he good to you?" "Yes." He nodded, jaw clenching. "Then I'll leave you alone." Irene watched as he turned and walked out into the mist. Her hands were shaking. She sat down on the nearest bench, heart pounding, the words of the book echoing in her mind. Healing isn't forgetting. She didn't need to forget Rex. She didn't even need him to apologize. She only needed to keep choosing herself. Later that night, she called Wayne. "I saw him," she said. There was a pause on the other end. "Are you okay?" "I think so," she said. "I told him the truth, for once, and I didn't cry, I didn't run, I didn't shrink." Wayne exhaled. "I'm proud of you," she smiled, leaning against her pillow. "I think I'm proud of me too."